that make you go,
You know, these aren't jokes, these are thoughts, these are things that make you say,
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We end today's show by looking at a leaked FBI counterterrorism memo, which claims so-called black identity extremists pose a threat to law enforcement. That's according to Foreign Policy magazine, which obtained the document written by the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Analysis Unit. The memo was dated August 3rd, 2017, only days before the deadly white supremacist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where white supremacists, Ku Klux Klan members, neo-Nazis killed an anti-racist protester. Heather Heyer injured dozens more. But the report is not concerned with the violent threat of white supremacists. Instead, the memo reads, the FBI assesses it's very likely black identity extremist perceptions of police brutality against African Americans spurred an increase in premeditated retaliatory lethal violence against law enforcement and will very likely serve as justification for such violence, end quote. Civil liberties groups have slammed the FBI report, warning the black identity extremist designation threatens the rights of protesters with Black Lives Matter and other groups. Many have also compared the memo to the FBI's covert COINTELPRO program of the 50s through 70s, which targeted the civil rights movement.
Anti-white feelings or sentiment doesn't lead to police violence. Being angry as a black person in America about police violence in America, police violence that is targeting largely people of color, also does not lead to violence against the police. So the bottom line here is that we have a rampant situation where white nationalism is on the rise. And yet the FBI has chosen to use its resources to construct and fabricate a threat that does not exist instead of addressing a threat that does exist. It's clear this is an attempt to criminalize black dissent.
So I would like to ask, Mr. Chair, unanimous consent to enter this report into the record, which is black identity extremists likely motivated to target law enforcement officers. I believe earlier you said you were not familiar with the report. Is that correct?
Well, I haven't read it. I know some of the alleged targeting of
okay, so you haven't necessarily read the report, but you are familiar with the term black identity extremists?
Well, I think so, yes.
So can you tell me what that term means to you? Do you believe that there is a movement of African Americans that identify themselves as black identity extremists, and what does that movement do?
Well, it'd be interesting to see the conclusions of that report. But I'm aware that there are groups that do have an extraordinary commitment to their racial identity, and some have transformed themselves even into violent activists.
Are you aware of white organizations that do this as well? Given that white supremacy is well-documented, well-researched movements such as the neo-Nazis, the Ku Klux Klan, etc., are they white identity extremists?
Yes, but it's not coming to me at this moment.
Not coming to you?
It's
So has the FBI done a report on white identity extremists that are likely motivated to target law enforcement officers? Is there such
I'm not
a
aware
report?
of that.
Okay. Okay. Are you aware of a group called the Sovereign Citizens?
I've heard that group, yes.
And I believe that the Sovereign Citizens is primarily a white organization that absolutely has targeted police officers and killed police officers. You're not aware of that?
I'm not aware of all their crimes, but I know they're...
Oh, hell no!
Extremists.
So what has happened is that there have been a couple of incidents in which African Americans did kill police officers who were not associated with a black organization. And so one, for example, in Baton Rouge was associated with Sovereign Citizens, which is primarily a white group. So has the FBI done a report on white identity extremists that are likely motivated to target law enforcement officers? Is there such
I'm not
a
aware
report?
of that.
Oh, hell no!
Could you name an African-American organization that have committed violent acts against police officers? Could you name one today? In this report, they name organizations from 30, 40 years ago, but can you name of one today that has targeted police officers in a violent manner?
I believe I could, but I would want to be, to confirm that.
You should know that there's a lot of concern in the community, especially from organizations such as Black Lives Matter. By the way, would you consider Black Lives Matter a black identity extremist group?
I'm not able to comment on that. Have not so declared it.
So you should know that a lot of activists around the country are very concerned that we're getting ready to repeat a very sad chapter of our history, where people who are rightfully protesting what they consider to be an injustice in their community, which is their relationship with police officers, are now being targeted and labeled as extremists and are going through periods of surveillance and harassment. And so I would like to know, what will you do to essentially roll back what is listed in this report? Because it's not accurate. I personally don't believe that any such organizations exist. The organizations that are referred to in this report are organizations from decades ago.
On Monday of this week, the Atlanta Black Star released an article entitled "FBI Tracks and Arrests Black Identity Extremists," and hardly anyone is talking about it. So I read through this article thoroughly. And what I learned was that there was a brother by the name of Rakeem Bolagoon, who is a very active brother in the community. He is the co-founder of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. He is a brother that has traveled around the country to teach Black men, women, and children how to defend themselves with and without a weapon. He also has a food, clothing, and shelter program in Dallas, Texas. And I found out that this brother has been watched by the FBI for the last 2.5 years. And they did label him up as a Black identity extremist. So on December the 12th, they kicked in his door, and she'll be able to provide you with details that I won't go into. I'll allow her to go into it. But they kicked in his house, and they had him standing outside for hours in his underwear. They searched his home. They recovered two weapons, 2 guns, and they said that these were illegal guns because he had a misdemeanor back in 2007, a misdemeanor assault that he got while he was in Tennessee. And now they're holding our brother at a federal facility without bail, okay? And they're prosecuting him under the BIE, the Black Identity Extremist Program. Brother signed that they followed this brother around for 29 months. And they admitted during his bail hearing that he committed no crime during his bail hearing, but yet they say that he is a danger to society, and that's why he was denied bail. Well, wait a minute. How are you a danger to society if you was watched for 29 months and you committed no crimes? So it's the language. They use very, very subjective language. It says the perceptions of police brutality, not that it exists, it's perceived. So in the report, the FBI said it is very likely Black identity extremist perceptions of police brutality, as if this isn't happening, against African Americans spewed an increase in premeditated, retaliatory, lethal violence against law enforcement and will likely serve as justification for such violence. So they're saying that these things are ideologically motivated, meaning the ideology that you subscribe to. So if you subscribe to Black nationalism, if you subscribe to Washita Moors, if you subscribe to Hebrew Israelites, if you subscribe to Pan-Africanism, right? Just based on your subscription to, or you subscribing to an ideology, they're saying that you could be labeled as a BIE because they're saying that your ideology will motivate you, right, to move in violence against the police officers. So it's this violent criminal activity within the BIE movement. But what they failed to talk about in this document is the fact that you had more white supremacists murder police officers than Black men. They don't talk about that. Since 1990, since 1990, 51 police officers have been murdered by white supremacists. Okay, you have more white men who pose as a terrorist threat to the United States of America than Black people. And this is data, but they're not going off of data. Everything is driven by politics. So the FBI has a long tradition of treating Black political movements as terrorists and enemies of the state and a threat to national security and public safety. Okay. So anyway, I also want to show you that the BIE is nothing but COINTELPRO. I call it COINTELPRO 2.0. Okay. So what they did was essentially they revived COINTELPRO under a new name, Black Identity Extremists. And so for brothers and sisters who aren't familiar with COINTELPRO, which is short for Counterintelligence Program, it was a program that was launched in the FBI, they say from 1956 to 1971. And the whole objective of this program was to neutralize Black activist parties. Okay, so they neutralized the Black Panther Party. They neutralized even Marcus Garvey. The Black Panthers Party, I'm sorry, the Socialist Workers Party, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and other different organizations, okay? So designed to prevent the rise. This is what J. Edgar Hoover said, designed to prevent the rise of a Black Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement and monitor, infiltrate, and destroy civil rights organizations. The history of the federal government coming down on Black justice movements as a threat to national security and conflating Black activists with domestic terrorists is a long one. Hoover, who targeted Black leadership since Marcus Garvey had an agency, sent a letter to Martin Luther King urging him to commit suicide. And see, Sina, that's not what we talk about. When Martin Luther King come up, people never talk about the number of threats he received and how the FBI was trying to kill him, and they did ultimately assassinate him in 1968. But we don't talk about that Martin Luther King. We talk about the I Have a Dream crap. But anyway, and called the Black Panther Party the most dangerous threat to the internal security of this country. But what I want to point out to you guys is the tactics that they used during the COINTELPRO. They would, here it is right here. It says tactics include intense surveillance, organization infiltration, anonymous mailings, and police harassment. And these were the tactics that they employed during 1956 and 1970, and they're still employing these same tactics today. So BIE, the Black Identity Extremist program, is nothing but the COINTEL program revived in 2017, just under a different name. Okay, so it says that the FBI focus on Black Identity Extremists comes as white men emerge as America's preeminent domestic terror threat, killing more Americans than Islamic terrorists. I'm gonna read that again. White men are killing more Americans than Islamic terrorists. It says, according to a report from Anti-Defamation League, white supremacists have killed 51 police officers since 1990, as opposed to the 11 officers killed by left-wing groups. But you don't see, Brother Sina, that they don't have a white identity extremist program going on, right? Even though the data shows that white supremacists have killed more officers than Black people, and that white men poses the greatest domestic terror threat, killing more Americans than Islamic terrorists. Okay, but people don't understand, that is when you live stream, when you go on YouTube and you talk about racism and white supremacy, they don't understand that you're putting your life on the line because you could be identified as a Black identity extremist.
But yeah, I agree with you. But let me tell you what's really going on. With that, all they doing is trying to silence us from trying to help and give our people information to make them aware of what's going on. So they label us as Black identity extremists. When you got these skinheads out there, when you got the Klan out there, that they can say they talk about killing us. We're not talking about murdering them. All we simply
not at all.
To give our people knowledge and information and to make them aware of this shit that's going on with the government. So they trying to silence us by doing what they do.
What do you think would happen if the evildoers hooked the Black Hebrew Israelites into the plot too? They are allowing you guys to terrorize, pun intended, the citizens of the city and gloat about it on social media for a reason, people.
like you said, Si, this is very important.
Right.
I mean, we've been talking about this thing for months, and it's here. It's here.
I have to tell you this, and you may think I'm nuts if you want to, but this is the truth. Either these men are following the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is in the Bible. They're either following it, just like a plan, and bringing the prophecies in there to pass, or there really is a God, and what he said was going to come to pass is coming to pass.
The white horse carrying a rider who conquers the earth, greedily running roughshod over all who stand in his way, in his lust for power. He is a deceiver. He is a dictator. He is a living devil. He is the Antichrist.
What do you think would happen if the evildoers hooked the black Hebrew Israelites into the plot too? They are allowing you guys to terrorize, pun intended, the citizens of the city and gloat about it on social media for a reason, people.
Yahshua.